Opossums. What do we know about them? They play dead, they come out at night, and maybe they're a little bit underappreciated. Before we get started, I want to extend a massive thank you to Takapusha Museum and Preserve, which is located in Seaford, New York. They allowed me to meet with their opossum Opal, and were more than happy to answer any questions about what it's like to take care of one that I had for them, which was super special. Thank you guys so much for taking time out of your day to meet with Steve the vlogger. The Virginia opossum is a small mammal native to North America. They are covered in grayish-white fur, have short legs, and a long hairless tail. You might remember this from the Steve the Vlogger hunt, clean, and cook video from years back. This was the one that killed him in that episode. It's a bit of a deep cut reference for the real Steve the Vlogger fans. They're commonly found just about anywhere. They succeed in both rural and urban environments, and their proximity to humans has led them with plenty of opportunities for both places to live and food. Unfortunately though, that seems to be a bit of a double-edged sword. A lot of people dislike them, but why do they dislike them? Being an opossum fan myself, I found it very difficult to understand why people might not like them. So I took it upon myself to reach out to some of the biggest opossum haters I know, and was incredibly respectful in my conversations with them while I attempted to understand why they might feel differently to me. Everyone I asked had the same answer: the tail. Opossums have a long, hairless tail that resembles a rat's at first glance, and you'd be forgiven for thinking that they are related to rats, but you'd also be wrong. Opossums are marsupials. Like a kangaroo, they carry their young in a pouch under their belly, and then when they get big enough, they climb up on the mom's back, and then they go their own way eventually. They also happen to be the only marsupial native to North America, which is kind of cool. Unfortunately, if you don't like hairless tails like this, I'm not going to make you like them visually. It's very subjective, right? But maybe I can win you over by explaining just how special they are. Today I'm joined by Ricky, who's a crested gecko, and he's here today to demonstrate what a prehensile tail is. A prehensile tail aids an animal while they're climbing, and they help it stabilize their body using it. If you see when I put my finger under Ricky's tail, you see how it curls around my finger like this? It almost acts like a fifth limb, right? Where they can use it to hold on to extra tree branches or stuff. Where Ricky lives, he's arboreal, which means he stays up in trees most of the time. In order to keep himself up there, it really helps to have that tail hanging on there. Opossums' tails are even cooler. They can use them to gather materials, and when they're younger, even dangle from tree branches. There's a bit of misinformation as to them being able to sleep upside down dangling from tree branches, but as far as I can tell and what I've read, when they're adults, they're like way too heavy to support themselves with their tail. While I can't prove this, I believe the second reason people are really scared of these animals is because of the time of day we see them. Opossums are nocturnal, so they're active all night long, which also means that we tend to encounter them at times of the day when people are already more a little on edge than usual. Super late at night, super early in the morning when you're walking out to your car, that's when you're likely to see one, and you're likely to be caught off guard. I have a really strong suspicion that if squirrels were nocturnal and had the chance of running by you late at night when you take out the trash, I think a lot less people would like them. I don't really think there's anything else really disturbing about their behavior. I mean, if you see them outside, most of the time, they're just kind of stumbling around. They look very clumsy. They can't run because of their short legs. I think the biggest misconception I hear about opossums is that they're these dirty rodents that carry tons of disease. They'll bite you and your pets and give you rabies, you know, that kind of thing. While it's true that they can carry certain diseases like tuberculosis, they cannot carry rabies. They can't do it physically. And that's because of their body temperature. Their body temperature does not reach a high enough threshold for the rabies virus to effectively reproduce in their body. I'm not telling you to go harass one until it turns around and bites you, because anything with a mouth can bite you.
Close that possum's mouth. Let's see. You're good.
But I personally like the peace of mind knowing that if I did get bit, I wouldn't have to go and get post-exposure rabies shots. Again. There's a lot of other unique features about opossums too. First of all, their teeth. So if we take a look at this opossum skull here, check out how many teeth it's got going on in there. They have the most teeth out of any mammal in North America. And believe me, they need all those teeth. Opossums will eat just about anything they can get their little hands on. They'll eat fruits, nuts, vegetables, insects, small rodents, frogs, anything. Honestly, anything they can get their hands on. And that's great for us, because they eat a lot of insects that are a big problem for us. They'll take care of roaches, they'll take care of termites. One big misconception about their diet is that they eat ticks. I used to think this was the case too, but some of the more recent studies I've been looking at are like inconclusive at best as to whether they do. But just because they don't eat ticks doesn't mean they won't eat roaches and other things that are really a pain in the butt for people to deal with. This structure right here is called a sagittal crest. This can indicate a couple things about an animal, but for our case right here, the more well-formed it is, the more it sticks out, the more muscle, generally speaking, is around the jaws and has more crushing force when it closes them. The most extreme example of this would be found in the wolverine. However, the wolverine skull is also so dramatic that while I can separate the mandible from the skull here on the opossum, you can't do that with the wolverine. It opens like this and it gets stuck because of the amount of muscle they have on their skull. Opossums also have opposable thumbs on their hind legs, which are called a hallux. They use it along with their tail to help them stabilize themselves for climbing trees and stuff like that. And with their front paws, that's what you want to call them, they can even grab stuff to hold it while they're eating, similar to like a raccoon. While their hands are great for manipulating food, they can't really dig with them. They're very delicate. I mean, they have these long, slender fingers. And similar to the salamanders and newts we discussed on a previous episode of Steve the Vlogger, they are kind of like a squatter's rights kind of animal. They'll just kind of use somebody else's burrow or wait until they leave it permanently and take over theirs rather than digging their own. As I mentioned earlier, opossums are not fast animals. They top out at around 7 miles per hour at their quickest. So in order to defend themselves from predators, they've developed a couple of different interesting techniques. The most iconic one being playing dead, but that's not the first one they do. If an opossum's cornered by a large predator, they'll bare their teeth, they'll hiss. They can secrete this green fluid from their anal glands. It's very smelly. It smells like rot and decay to try and ward off predators. And if all else fails, they slip into a catatonic state, which is the playing dead. It's involuntary. They stress themselves out to the point where their body shuts down. It's like a major panic attack. While opossums are mammals, and a lot of mammals tend to have pretty complex social structures and interactions, opossums are not one of those species. Their interactions with each other are pretty much limited to mating, and if they're meet otherwise, a lot of the time it's not a happy meeting. Opal is a Virginia opossum who lives at Tacapusha Museum and Preserve. Her mother was hit by a car a few years ago while Opal was still in her pouch. And while her mom didn't survive, unfortunately, Opal did with minimal injuries and ended up being raised in captivity. These days, Opal enjoys a varied diet, with some of her favorite snacks being blueberries and dog food. One of Opal's caretakers, Harry, described her behavior as being really sweet and similar to that of a cat. At first, Harry held Opal and she seemed more than okay to hang out in his arms. However, the moment Harry placed her on the floor, Opal decided we couldn't be any less interesting. She walked all over the museum, sniffing everything and everyone as she went. The other guests meant very little to her. She definitely had her own agenda. Every couple of minutes, Harry and I had to chase her down. She was in no mood to wait around while we spoke about her. She was very interested in trying to get into their maintenance closet, and kept trying to sneak around Harry's legs to get in there. Perhaps snacks are in there, I don't know, but clearly Opal did. The curiosity Opal displayed was something I didn't expect. She didn't slow down for a single second of her expedition. Her whiskers were constantly flicking over shoes and carpet and tile, and you could hear how hard she was sniffing to try and take everything in. The most incredible part of spending time with Opal was getting to hold her. Her fur was really soft and she seemed completely unfazed about being lifted and held by a complete stranger. I think this specifically speaks volumes to how well cared for and loved Opal is, that she was so trusting of a human she just met. It was very interesting comparing Vlad the Vulture's reaction to me with that of Opal's. Both of them displayed curiosity about me being in their space, but they both went about it in completely different ways. There were several points when I was worried about stressing out Vlad too much. I just never felt this way with Opal. She was in her element. I was in her home. I don't think I witnessed a single moment where she seemed stressed out about the amount of visitors around her, or the noise, or even kids running past her. Although Opal is in her golden years, opossums only really live for 5 or so. Harry said that she's shown no signs of slowing down. Hopefully she has many more years of snacking and exploring ahead of her. Once again, just a massive thank you to Takapusha and specifically Harry for answering any questions I had about Opal while I was there and allowing me to spend time with her. It was an incredible experience. So thank you so much.